Well, a very, very happy Monday morning to everyone and happy holidays. Just want to give you some programming notes before we get rolling into the program today. We have a lot to get to. Today will be our only show of the week. We'll take the rest of the week off, celebrate with the family, going to the Holiday Bowl on Friday. It'll be interesting to see exactly who Washington State shows up with to play in the bowl game. Very anxious to see who their quarterback's going to be, who their head coach is going to be now that John Mateer is transferred out, going to Oklahoma, and Jason Dickert moving on to greener pastures as the head coach. So we'll have to wait and see who Washington State brings to the table. But I am going to the Holiday Bowl on Friday. Just some programming notes. I mentioned today will be our only show of the week, and then we will come back next Monday on December 30th, give you another show, and that'll be it for 2024. And then we will come back in January, on Monday, January 6th, and we'll get back to our regular 3-day-a-week program. I want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart. It's been a good run. We started this podcast in May, and we continue to grow our listenership and working on getting some sponsors and doing some more creative things in 2025. But you folks that have been with me much of the year, I want to thank you very much, very much. I had no idea what to expect from doing this podcast, but very much I'm glad I'm doing it, and hopefully I'm giving you what you want. Okay, I mentioned we got a lot to get to today, and unfortunately, I have to start off with the passing of Ricky Henderson. Ricky passed away on Friday night, and Saturday I was looking so forward to the bowl games or the playoff games. I guess the next round will be bowl games, but I was looking so much to the college playoffs. We'd had a family event on Friday night. Really didn't see much of the Notre Dame whomping of Indiana, so I was really focused. And then I'm watching the pregame show, College Game Day, and I get some tweets saying that Ricky Henderson passed away. But they weren't from any, I don't want to say credible sources, but none of the mainstream media had it. And I'm hunting around for like an hour and a half, and I'm going, I hope this is not true. I hope this is just, clickbait, a sick joke as we work our way towards Christmas. Well, it wasn't. Ricky passed away on Friday night at 65 years of age. He turned 66 on Christmas Day. And, I read all the different things people had to say about him. I mean, he was a disruptive influence. And in his heyday, he was a disruptive influence. I mean, he could change a baseball game in a heartbeat. Like Earl Weaver said, hey, you walk Ricky, it's like giving up a triple. And we know about what he did on the bases, the all-time leading base stealer, career, over 1,400 stolen bases, had 131 year, which is the all-time record. I could only imagine what he'd do now if they had that rule in place. You can only throw over twice. That'd be crazy. But nonetheless, Ricky passed away of pneumonia. And, I was just heartbroken. Not that I knew him, one-on-one, but I covered him. I had conversations with him. Ricky is one of these guys that, he played in a lot of different cities over his career. We know that 4 different times he spent time with the A's, and he spent 2 different tours of duty with the Padres, among other teams that he played for. But, I had some really good interactions with this guy, and they were fun. And I think one of the guys that helped our relationship was Tony Gwynn, because Tony was a big fan of the coach. Tony was a big fan of mine, and Tony always wanted to make sure I got what I needed. That's why when I would go to spring training every year, Tony would always be my leadoff hitter on Monday nights. My first show in Peoria, Tony Gwynn always my leadoff hitter. Always wanted to make sure I was taken care of. He knew I was a hardworking guy, an honest guy, and a guy that loved sports. He took good care of me. And I think because his locker was right next to Ricky, Ricky probably saw this big old dude coming into the clubhouse every day and go, who is this guy? And Tony probably told him my background, and Ricky was always really cool with me. And so he came in 1996. I wanted to share some of the stories with you because they're pretty funny. They're pretty funny. 1996. We're getting close to the trade deadline. I'm sitting in the Padre dugout. And at this point in time, Padres are talking to a lot of different teams, and Ricky's out hitting off a batting tee, hitting into a circle net. And he's hitting the ball right towards me. He's got the circle net right out in front of the dugout, and he's hitting balls right at me, but they're going into the circle net, so I'm safe. But the whole time that he's hitting balls in the circle net, because there were a lot of rumors that he was going to be traded, even, only being here for 3 months. And Ricky, as normal, was talking in the third person. He goes, Ricky don't want to be traded. Ricky shouldn't be traded. Ricky ought to be right here. And it was just funny because every time you'd hit the ball off the tee, he'd just kind of saunter over, pick up another ball, look at me, put the ball on the tee, and he's just talking. Not talking to anyone in particular, but he'd look over at me because he was facing me on his follow through after he hit the ball off the tee. So that was a good one. Okay, and he finished 1996 with the Padres and actually had a pretty good year. They bring him back in 1997 and didn't have a great year. And I should say he did have a good year. It was 2001 where he hit like 227. But the next year, 1997, he's hitting the ball pretty well, having some good numbers. Well, the Padres, they end up trading him that year. They trade him to the Angels. And about 2 weeks after he gets traded to the Angels, he comes back to San Diego. And they're going to have Ricky Henderson. Now, this is where Lucchino and Charles Steinberg were unbelievable. They had Ricky Henderson Day like a week and a half or 2 weeks after Ricky got traded. So I go down on the field, and Ricky's down the third baseline. I walk over and say, "Hey, Ricky, glad you're back. Have a fun time with Ricky Henderson today, and really enjoyed covering you here in San Diego." And so he was cool, and we went on and on. But I got to tell you, one day in particular, all members of the media were standing, going back to 1996, we're standing in the middle of the Padre clubhouse after an afternoon game. And there was about 5 of us. And everybody was talking about Ricky Henderson. And about Ricky was one of these guys. He came to town with a reputation of not being great with the media, not being a great teammate, blah, 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 blah. We saw none of that. Ricky Henderson was a model citizen when he was in San Diego. And by the stories that are coming out now, it might have been when he played in New York where everything got blown out of proportion. Ricky Henderson was a great teammate. All the teammates loved him because Ricky could take pressure off of other teammates by the way he went about his business. He'd hit a home run and he'd do his little jumping around and pull at his shirt and, pull his arm a little bit looser on his jersey. I mean, he was an incredible athlete and really a good guy. Really a good guy. But that day in particular, I remember standing in the middle of the Padre clubhouse, and members of the media were saying, "Man, this guy is nothing like we were told he is. He's been incredible. Always had time for the media unless he had to get his work in. Always dressed fantastic." I remember talking with him right by Tony's locker one day. He had like a little man purse. I mean, he was a stylish dude, man. He was a really stylish dude and a good guy. And, he was kind of like Reggie Jackson. I'd say Reggie Jackson. When Reggie Jackson would walk in or, some big name ball player, I mean, Reggie Jackson walks in, you took notice. When Ricky Henderson walked in, you took notice. I mean, he just had that kind of flair about him. But, some of the other things I wanted to share, and he went on and he bounced around for a number of years. But I was in spring training in March of 2001. In fact, I knew the date. I didn't even need to look the date up on Saturday when I knew I was going to do something on Ricky on the podcast. It was Monday, March 19th. And I was in the media room, and I think it was Bernie Wilson, Bill Center from the Union Tribune, and Sean O'Neill covering the Padres for the Blade Citizen. And Ricky signed a contract that day. He was a free agent, and he signed a contract. The Padres notified us. And what was interesting, it was an off day. There were nobody there except us 4 guys hanging out, and I was just waiting to do a show that night. And I was going to do it from the Hampton Inn across the street. And they go, "Hey, Ricky Henderson signing a contract." We go, "Hey, can we talk to him?" They go, "Well, he's going to be here at 2:00. He's going to sign the contract at 1, and then he wants to take some swings at the cage about 2:00. So you guys can walk out to the cage, and we'll meet you out there at 2:00. So we walk out there, and I think at that time there were 3 of us. I can't remember if Bernie was there. And by the way, Bernie's going to retire from the AP right after the first of the year. And congratulations to Bernie Wilson, fantastic guy. But it was Sean O'Neill, Bill Center, myself, and I think Bernie wasn't there, or he'd already got the story or something. But anyways, we go out to the cage, and Ricky's swinging the bat. He gets out of the cage, and he comes out and starts talking to us, shakes our hand. Hey, good to be back in San Diego. And you talk about a down-to-earth guy. He wasn't around a bunch of people where he was Ricky. He was Ricky Henderson, the human being, great guy, one-on-one, just talking how happy he was about coming back to San Diego and all that good stuff. And it was really cool. Now, he didn't have a great year. He hit 227 that year. That was his last year with the Padres. And then he bounced around for a while. Remember, he came back in 2005 and played for the Surf Dogs? And I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so he plays for the Padres in 2001. That also happened to be Tony's last year in the big leagues. And that Sunday, the final game of the regular season, Padres, they finished, 4 games under 500, I think, that year in 2001. Ricky Henderson had 2,999 hits. In that Sunday day game against the Colorado Rockies, Padres got pounded like 14-5. Didn't matter. It was Tony's last game. And I know this really, really well because I had to do an NFL post-game Sunday on Mighty 690. And I think I was working with Ed White at the time. And it was at 4 o'clock. So I knew I probably wasn't going to see Tony hit. But I got tickets for my wife and my youngest daughter. And they went to the game. I went to the game as long as I could stay. And then I hustled to the studio and did my post-game show. But I got to the ballpark early that day because I wanted to see Tony and talk to him. And I get there, man, I got there at about 10 o'clock. And Tony was already in the dugout talking with Wayne Hagan, the play-by-play voice of the Colorado Rockies, who went to San Diego State and used to call San Diego State games as a college student. And he and Tony knew one another. And they had walked around the outfield, and Wayne knew me pretty well. So all three of us sat in the dugout for like an hour before anybody showed up. Last day of the season, last game, Tony Gwynn's going to suit up and play. And he ended up pinch hitting with 1 out in the 9th, grounded out to shortstop in his final big league at bat. But anyways, getting back to Ricky. Ricky needs 1 hit for 3,000. And Ricky tells Tony, he goes, I'm going to sit the game out, man. This is your day. And Tony goes, no, you're not. You're going to play. People are coming to the ballpark today to see you get your 3,000th hit. You're going to play. Ricky had an incredible amount of respect for Tony Gwynn. And I'm telling you that right now. He had an incredible amount of respect for Tony Gwynn. And Ricky offered to sit out that final game in a Padre uniform, final game of the 2001 season, and he'd carried 2,999 hits into 2002. But Tony goes, no, you're playing. And so in the bottom of the first, John Thompson, a right-handed pitcher from Colorado, first pitch, Ricky hits a fly ball down the right field line, parachutes it in, legs it into second base for a double. And the Padre players come out, his 3,000th hit. I saw that, which was really cool. But that was his final hit in the Padre uniform. Hit like 227 that year. Rough year for him. But nonetheless, he was a class act the entire way. He really was. And I'll tell you what, it was a real pleasure to cover him because you never knew exactly what he was going to do. Just some of the things that this guy did were flat out incredible. Looking at his numbers, he hit 279 for a career in 25 years in the big league. He hit 279. The thing that amazed me when I went back and looked, he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about that. He got 94.8% of the vote. There were 28 people that didn't vote for him. Are you kidding me? I mean, this guy could disrupt the game. I mean, really get pitchers to do things, get catchers jumpy, get middle infielders jumpy. I mean, he was a disruptive influence. He finished with 3,055 hits, 297 dingers, 1,115 RBIs, 1,406 stolen bases, first all time, 2,295 runs scored, first all time, and he broke Ty Cobb's record, hit a home run at Qualcomm Stadium, and to break the record, he slid into home plate, which was really cool. 10-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion, AL MVP with Oakland, 12-time AL stolen base leader, among other things. I wanted to mention his time though with the Surf Dogs. And the reason I want to do that is because I talked our program director into letting me go out and do a remote. They weren't getting paid, and these stations, they don't want to do things sometimes for community. Depending on what station you work for, they don't always want to do stuff for the community. So like going to the blood drive. I love going to blood drives and being out in the community. But anyways, I talked the station into going out and letting me do a remote at Tony Gwynn Stadium because the Surf Dogs were playing. Terry Kennedy was managing. They were in the Golden Baseball League in 2005. They ended up being the league champion. But Ricky Henderson signed with them. So I get them to send me out there on a Wednesday night, and I'm doing this broadcast. And I remember interviewing Terry Kennedy, Warren Cromartie. Remember Warren Cromartie, who played with the Montreal Expos? He was with Andre Dawson and Ellis Valentine once upon a time, played left field. And then after he got done with Montreal, he went to Kansas City and he went to Japan for many years. Well, he was managing a team, the Japan Bears, and he brought him to San Diego to play the Surf Dogs. So I interviewed Cromartie. Again, Terry Kennedy was managing, the former Padre catcher. And part of the deal was if I go out there, I got to be able to interview Ricky Henderson. So they bring Ricky to me. And I wanted him to sign some baseballs. And they go, well, he can't sign those baseballs. I go, what do you mean he can't sign these baseballs? He goes, part of his contract was he could only sign baseballs from the Golden League. And the reason for that is you'd have to buy a Golden League baseball and Ricky would sign it. And, they would make some money. They didn't stay in existence very long. But anyways, because I was who I was, they went and got like 4 baseballs. And they had Ricky sign all 4 baseballs for me. So I've got these baseballs of Ricky Henderson signed on a Golden League baseball. I have no idea what they're worth, but it doesn't matter. It's all about sentimental value to me more than anything else. But anyways, had a great interview. Ricky just loved playing baseball. Just loved playing baseball. In 2005, when he played here in San Diego for the Surf Dogs, that was his last year. And by the way, he did really well. He hit 270 that year with a 456 on base percentage, 29 RBIs, had an 859 OPS. He was only 46 years old. Guy's amazing. And then, this year, because Oakland's moving out of the Coliseum, going to Sacramento, Ricky threw out the first pitch. The final day at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. And other times his daughter threw out the first pitch too, Ricky. But Ricky threw out the first pitch, the final game this year at the Oakland Coliseum. I'll be honest with you, Saturday when this happened, this really shook me up because we're a very similar age. And I didn't know he was sick. And I don't think anybody, knew he was sick. He got pneumonia, was in the hospital for a period of time and passed away. But all my memories of Ricky Henderson, absolutely fantastic. One of the greats of the game and one of the great characters of the game. I mean, one story that was told, and it's told in a variety of different ways. But when he was with the Padres, he, Tony said, hey, Ricky, come on up here, man. You can sit in the front of the bus. He goes, you got tenure. And Ricky goes, no, I don't. I got 17 years. I don't have 10 years. I've got 17 years in the big leagues. The other story is when he was in Seattle and he goes up to John Olerud, who always wore a helmet because he had a brain hemorrhage when he played at Washington State and he had to protect his head. And he always wore a helmet when he was in the field. Olerud had a hell of a career, 295 career hitter, hell of a ball player, great first baseman, a great pitcher, by the way, in college at Washington State for Bobo Brayton. But he goes up to Olerud and he goes, I played with a guy once that wore a helmet. And Olerud looked at him and goes, Ricky, you played with me last year with the New York Mets. So those are among the stories. The last one I'll share with you is when he was given $1 million by the Oakland Athletics. He goes, man, I'm a millionaire. And he framed, this is a true story because he signed off on this. This isn't a made up story. He signed off on this. He goes, I'm a millionaire. He went and got a frame. He framed it and put it on the wall. And come December, the Oakland bookkeeper is going through the books and going, man, we're $1 million. There's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. And they find out that Ricky had never cashed a check. And they call Ricky. They go, Ricky, do you have that $1 million check we gave you? He goes, yeah, I got it. I got it framed on the wall here. Goes, Ricky, you got to cash that. He goes, get a photocopy of it, duplicate, put that in the frame and cash the check. And Ricky actually signed off on that story. So, I mean, Ricky was a funny guy. And I'll tell you what, man, he had one of the best athletic bodies you would ever see. And just all my memories of Ricky were great. I think Boch loved managing him. I don't know how many people's name he really knew who he was playing with, or he knew I was a good guy because I showed up every day, but I don't think he ever really knew my name. But you know what? I didn't feel bad. I'm not sure he knew Tim Flannery's name, who was the third base coach at the time. He was just that guy. He just came out and played ball, man. He just wanted to show up. What time's the game? And I'll be there ready to roll. That was Ricky Henderson. Rest in peace, my friend. I'm glad our paths crossed. Okay, Aztecs. Unbelievable trip. Okay, they tried to get out of San Diego on Friday. It didn't work. They were supposed to take off a little after 4, flight delayed till 8:15, and then totally canceled. They get a car or a van or whatever, and they drive up to Orange County. They go to Newport Beach and spend the night. Now they're going to fly out of John Wayne there in Orange County, right there off the 405. They go there, flight's canceled. Now they're going, how the hell are we going to get to San Jose? We got to get to San Jose to play this basketball game. And so now they come up with a plan that some of the coaches and players are going to drive to Ontario and catch a flight. The other guys are going to get into a bus and go 388 miles to San Jose. And I don't know how they broke up the party or not. I would imagine probably the top 8, 9 players went to Ontario with a couple of the coaches, and the other guys hopped on a bus. I'm not sure exactly how the breakdown was. So now they get to Ontario. You got one group of guys on a bus trying to get to San Jose. By the way, it's 7:30, 7:35 tip-off Saturday night. Now, this is Saturday morning. They got guys going every which way. So they get over to Ontario. Now, that flight has been delayed, and they finally get out, and they finally fly to San Jose. Aztecs miss their shoot-around. They miss that completely. They come out on the court for a 7:30 game at 7:05. First time they walk in the SAP Center. And they're taking on the California Golden Bears that have a home court advantage, obviously, because they're a Bay Area team. They come in with a nice 7-4 record for Mark Matson, the former Laker. Aztecs couldn't throw a pea in the ocean early. I mean, it was ugly. I watched the game. It was on the ACC network. Ugly, ugly, ugly. They were 2 for their first 19. But Cal was awful because of the defense of the Aztecs. Aztecs ended up winning this game going away. They were up by 29, and then they put in their reserves, and they ended up winning by 21, 71-50. They held Cal. Get this. They held Cal in the first half to 15.6% shooting. I mean, that's unbelievable. They were incredible. And they held Cal for the game at 25.5. Cal was 14 of 55 shooting. Aztecs only shot 37.3. It wasn't like they lit it up. They were 9 of 26 on threes, and they were 12 of 15 on free throws. I mean, I thought they played well. Defensively, they were outstanding. They're a really good team. And their next matchup is going to be against Utah State, a team that UCSD knocked off last week up in Logan. UCSD went in. UCSD's playing some really good basketball. They are a good basketball team. And San Diego State's got Utah State, a 3 o'clock game. Are you serious? That should be a 7 o'clock game. I know it's because of TV, but that should be a 7 o'clock game. That's going to be on Saturday, this coming Saturday. Big game in the Mountain West Conference, 3 o'clock, man. Come on. You got to do better than that. But the Aztecs played great. I mean, Nick Boyd shot the lights out that night, 17 points against Cal. Miles Bird, 12 points. B.J. Davis, nice to see him shooting the ball a little bit better. He had 12 points. And Wayne McKinney, the former USD Torero and Coronado Islander coming off the bench, he had 10 points. Magoon Guath had 10 rebounds. Aztecs sitting at 8-2 right now, playing some good basketball. Also on Saturday night, over at the Jenny Craig Pavilion, UCSD, as I mentioned, they continue to roll. They're 11-2, 2-0 in the Big West. They'll have a non-conference game coming up on Saturday against a non-Division One opponent, Occidental, at 4 o'clock at Lion Tree Arena. But Saturday night, it was. I don't like to talk about trap games because I think you got to show up and play every night. And UCSD showed up. They did not have a great night. They shot 46.2%. USD shot 50.9, but UCSD just forced so many turnovers. I mean, it was 20 plus turnovers by the Toreros, and the Tritons beat the Toreros 77-71. So 11-2 now. USD, Steve Lavin having a hell of a time getting that program going in his third year. They're 3-9. Tyler McGuy, 27 points, 7 of 10 on three-pointer. Man, that guy's deadly. He was the Big West sixth man of the year a year ago. Now he's in the starting rotation. Aniwa Tate Jones had 17 points. Hayden Gray, 11 points, 7 more steals. Hayden Gray, people don't know this. There was a nice article in the paper on him last week. Hayden Gray leads the nation, all of Division I basketball in steals, and he had a career high 7 against the Toreros on Saturday night. And Chris Howell out of my alma mater, Torrey Pines, had 11. USD, man, they got to get it rolling. It's going to be tough. They got to play Grand Canyon Saturday up at the Intuit Dome at 3:30. That's the new arena where the Clippers were playing. So get you caught up on basketball. Later today, we'll find out exactly where the Aztecs are going to be ranked this coming week. Okay, we've got to get to college football playoffs. And boy, they were dud games, weren't they? They were really dud games. Like I mentioned earlier, I really didn't see a whole lot. I saw the tail end when Indiana was trying to come back, but it was awful. They got pounded. Notre Dame was just too good. I don't know how great Notre Dame is, and we're going to take a look at the next round here in a minute. But I want to go through the games on the weekend, and then we'll take a look at the bowl schedule for the 4 games that'll be played. We got 1 on New Year's Eve and then 3 on Christmas Day or on New Year's Day, which I'm looking forward to. But Friday night, Notre Dame wins at 27-17. Really wasn't that close. Hoosiers scored 14 points in the last minute and 27. Okay, Notre Dame playing prevent, whatever. Jeremiah Love had 8 carries, 108 yards, but you know what? He had one 98-yard touchdown run. And man, that guy can fly. He's a big, strong dude too. The guy that I was impressed with overall was Jeremiah Love. I thought he was good. I thought Riley Leonard was good, the quarterback for Notre Dame. Notre Dame had 394 total yards, 193 yards rushing. It's kind of ran over Indiana. Coach Signetti might just want to coach the squad and not pop off as much. I know he was sticking up for his guys, but man, just go out and play the game. Go out and play the game. And then Saturday, James Franklin, not one of my favorite coaches in the country, finally won, I guess, a big game. If you call and beat SMU a big game, I guess it is because of college football playoff, but he's had a hard time winning big games in his career at Penn State. They won it easily 38-10. They were up 28-0 at halftime. The quarterback from SMU was just awful. Kevin Jennings, a game to forget, 20 of 36, 195 a touchdown, but 3 picks, 2 of them returned for touchdowns. Had a couple of fumbles in the ball game. Just an awful performance. SMU really didn't look like they belonged. Saturday, Texas 38, Clemson 24, 292 yards rushing for the Longhorns. The guy that I was really impressed with was the quarterback from Clemson. He's from Austin. Played at Austin Westlake High School, Cade Klubnik. When I first saw him at Clemson a couple years ago, he was a young freshman. I didn't think much of him, but I'll tell you what, I think next year he can be one of the best quarterbacks around. I think he's really good right now. He put up some pretty good numbers, 26 of 43, 336, 3 touchdowns, had 1 interception. Jaden Blue, big night rushing for the Longhorns, 14 carries, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a 77-yard touchdown. And then I waited around. Really, I thought it was going to be the best game. Tennessee going into the Ohio Stadium to take on the Buckeyes. Buckeyes came out and just pounded them. They almost looked like they didn't belong, but I know they belong. Tennessee's a good football team. They got overwhelmed. They were down 21-0 before they even knew what was going on. I mean, Ohio State came out and scored 21 points in the first quarter. They walked away with a 42-17 victory. They rolled up 473 yards. Buckeyes just look great. Will Howard, their quarterback, Kansas State transfer, 24, 29, 311, 2 touchdowns, an interception. That freshman wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, oh my God. If he was eligible for the draft this year, he'd be a number 1 draft pick. 6 catches, 103 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So the games were blowouts. I mean, the closest game was on Friday night, 10-point game. Everything else, complete blowout. And the only reason that was 10-point because Notre Dame kind of took their foot off the gas pedal. Okay, let's take a look now. The next round, and these will be quote-unquote bowl games. Tuesday, December 31st, you got number 6 seed Penn State going up to Boise to take on 3 seed Boise State. Penn State, right now, a 10.5-point favorite. The over-under 52.5. I think I got to take Penn State in that, but we'll talk about that on our podcast next Monday. Texas going into the old Sun Devil Stadium. Well, it would have been Sun Devil Stadium, but now considering it's a bowl game, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I look at that. I got to believe Texas is going to win that, even though I'm going to be pulling for Arizona State because my cousin Larry used to coach there with Frank Kush. Ohio State, Oregon. And man, I remember as a kid always looking forward to the Big Ten to come out, taking on USC, UCLA, or Stanford, or whoever. But now you've got the Big Ten coming out to take on the Big Ten. How about that? When has that ever happened in the Rose Bowl? You got 2 teams from the same conference. I'll be honest with you. I kind of like Ohio State in this game. They're 2.5-point favorites, but I really like the way they looked against Tennessee. Tennessee's really good. And if you recall, that game up in Autzen Stadium, Oregon won that by 1 point. Will Howard ran down the field, went down, clock ran out, didn't get an opportunity to try to kick a game-winning field goal. That's going to be a hell of a game. And Ohio State right now, they've got a chip on their shoulder after getting beat up after that Michigan game. They came out and played a hell of a game against Tennessee. Oregon got a great quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. They got a lot of weapons. That should be a hell of a game. But right now, the starting line, Ohio State by 2.5. And then the final game at the Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, you're going to have number 7 seed Notre Dame going against 2 seed Georgia. Georgia right now a 1.5 favorite. I think Georgia probably wins that game. We'll see where everybody's at health-wise after Notre Dame played the other night. But those are the games. So you got the Tuesday night. You've got Boise State going at it, and Boise State, they're a good football team. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if they're going to be able to win that game. And then you got the other matchups. I really think Texas and is going to be in there. That's going to be a good one. And Ohio State and Oregon. That's going to be one heck of a football game. Okay, we got some Padre news for you. And you had to look down at the bottom corner of one of the pages on Sunday Sports page. Padres sent out a little note, but nothing really official yet because Major League Baseball hasn't signed off on it. Eric Katsenda, who's taken over for Peter Seidler after Peter passed away a year ago, November, is the team chairman. He's held that position. He's going to stay with the organization in another capacity, probably overseeing everything. But John Seidler, the 65-year-old brother of Peter Seidler, is going to become the team chairman, and that's once Major League Baseball approves him, and that there shouldn't be any problem. And so the Seidler family said they plan on keeping this ball club for a long period of time. We'll wait and see how things go over the next few years. Things do change, but I think Peter wanted it to be that way. We'll see if everybody wants to put in the energy. I mean, you can own a ball club, but that puts you every day, man. You're in the firing line. And, these people have a lot of money. They can sell it for a lot of money, and they can move on with their lives as they want at some point in time. But right now, they said they want to keep it. They plan on keeping it for a long period of time. And we'll see what John Seidler brings to the table. I don't think it's going to change what the Padres are doing financially because right now we've not seen that the Padres are going to spend any money. If anything, they got to get rid of some money. And we'll talk more about that next week on the podcast. But John Seidler waiting to be approved for Major League Baseball. Some other baseball notes. Nolan Arenado nixed a deal to go to the Houston Astros. Didn't want to go. And everybody's telling me now, and the reports are he doesn't want to go anywhere but play for the LA Dodgers. He's waiting for the Dodgers to decide what they're going to do with their roster. They still haven't signed Teoscar Hernandez. They've still got to sign Kike Hernandez. There's talk that they're going to try to sign Hassan Kim. I don't know how many guys the Dodgers can sign, but they'd have to trade for Nolan Arenado. And Arenado has wanted to play for the Dodgers for a long period of time. When he went from Colorado to the Cardinals, he wanted to go to LA. They just couldn't work it out. And he's going to hold out. He's going to wait. I don't know where he's going to end up. I hope it's not in LA. He's still a dynamite player. And I think getting out of St. Louis might be, a rejuvenation for him. He's from, the Orange County area, went to El Toro High School. So we'll have to wait and see on that. I wanted to mention the Yankees because the Yankees have had, I think, an incredible offseason. And I think not signing Juan Soto was a godsend. I really do. It had so much money tied up in one ball player. But, I mean, think about the Yankees. They signed Max Fried, 8 years, $218 million. They trade for the great closer. And you got to get healthy, though. Got 1 year before he becomes a free agent. Devin Williams from Milwaukee. They gave up Nestor Cortez. They gave up a nice little prospect in Caleb Durbin. That's a great get for the Yankees. And then they make the trade with the Cubs to get Cody Bellinger. And they sent a kid from Christian High, Cody Poteet. He went out the door to the Cubs from the Yankees. But Bellinger, who can get the job done. And then over the weekend, they signed Paul Goldschmidt. I know he's 37. I know he had a rough year with the Cardinals. But $12.5 million 1 year for Paul Goldschmidt, because the rumors are already out there that they're going to go after Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Unless he re-signs with Toronto, they're going to go after him. They're going to spend the money on him. I don't think he's going to be a $700 million player, but we'll have to wait and see. But those are some of the baseball notes I got for you. And just a couple of other quick ones. Christian Walker signed a 3-year deal, the great first baseman, Gold Glove winner from Arizona. He signed with the Houston Astros. 3 years, $60 million. Last 3 years, he's hit 95 homers and drove in 281 runs. Good get for Houston, very affordable. Arizona Diamondbacks over the weekend. Traded for our old buddy, Josh Naylor. So Josh Naylor back in the National League West. Didn't give up a whole lot for him. And the Guardians, right after they traded Josh Naylor, they signed 38-year-old first baseman DH Carlos Santana to a 1-year, $12 million deal. And then on Sunday, the Phillies acquired left-hander Jesus Luzardo from the Marlins. So a lot of things going on baseball-wise. Not anything much going on in San Diego. And as far as Jurickson Profar, last I heard, he's looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of a 3-year deal at $45 million. Well, if that's the case, it won't be in San Diego. Okay, we're going to get out of here. I want to thank everyone. Now, remember, we will not have a show this Wednesday or Friday. We'll rejoin you on Monday, December 30th, and we'll have one show that week. And then we come back in January on January 6th, and we'll get back to our Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:30. I want to wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas and hope everyone has a great and safe holiday and get to spend it with your family and friends. Again, Merry Christmas, and I'll rejoin you on our next podcast coming up on Monday, December 30th. Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye-bye.